Good morning. Long weekend for me again, like last week. So we had Easter previous weekend, and this week it was Anzac Day yesterday, and I've decided to take off the Saturday as well. So I've got Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off. So I wanted to recharge, and I've had this opportunity, so it's all good. So working a 3-day week, wow, that's something to look forward to in the future, I think, for sure. Now, this week, I wanted to talk about the only thing that's in the news, and that's the death of Pope Francis. It's a bit of a weird one for me because although I am spiritual, I am certainly not religious in the traditional sense. I'm not a devout Catholic or Anglican. I don't go to church. I certainly don't pray. But I do have, I suppose you call me an agnostic. So I like to believe there's something, but I'm not quite sure what it is, whether it's God or something else. I just do not know. Pope Francis, from what I can gather, was a Jesuit. Now, I don't know anything about this, so this is off the cuff, and I'm just going to say what I believe that is. I think he took a vow of poverty, so he took no income from the church, he took no salary, he had no, at the time of his death, he had no assets, he really had nothing. He was just there to devote his life to Catholicism. In my book, that makes him a good person. Now, he has obviously got views that I disagreed with. So, for example, I believe strongly in gay marriage. And myself and Daryl have been married now for 10 years. We've been together for 30, I nearly forgot. And that piece of paper, that marriage certificate, really does change you as a person. Certainly me. It makes you understand commitment and love for each other in a way that anything other than marriage doesn't. Initially, when we got married, or we were getting married, we were going to opt for a civil partnership. But luckily, that changed just as we were planning the wedding. So basically, we decided to have the marriage traditional. And I'm glad we did. I'm certainly glad I'm not going to live my life without that certificate of commitment, because that is what it is. When two people love one another, it's important that they show that in whichever way they believe is right. And for us, it was that marriage. And it still, resonates with me today, obviously. And I remember at the time when we were getting married, I actually nearly cried, and I know my voice broke, and it truly, truly meant something. It wasn't in a church, it was in a registry office, but nevertheless, it was still an extremely important day for me. My biggest fear with the death of the Pope is a return to right-wing, a return to going backwards in life. And that scares me, because as a gay man, we've had enough discrimination in our lives. The world itself has changed, and it is it has gone far to the right. So when you look at America, when you look at Russia, when you look at various countries in Europe and across the world, there's a sea change, and right-wing politics is on the march. The Vatican has always been a counterbalance to that, so it's always been there to voice an opinion for which others, whether they be the poor, any minority group, the voice that they don't have. And the Vatican have always been there to stand up for these people. They've never ever really stood up for gay people, any church, if I'm honest. In fact, that's a lie, because there was one church who wrote a letter for me and Daryl when he was applying for residency in the UK, and it was the Metropolitan Church of Bournemouth, and they were a very inclusive, welcoming church. Equally, the Quakers, where we actually initially had our first rite of blessing, they were also a very inclusive, welcoming group of people. But they weren't religions in the traditional sense. So my fear now is return to right-wing politics, but also a right-wing church. Pope Francis was a progressive, so he was, I guess he was sowing the seeds of change within the church. And in everything he did, you could see that he wanted something different. Okay, he didn't believe in gay marriage, but he believed in civil unions. He believed that gay people should be welcomed into the church. And I mean, God knows how many homosexual Catholic priests there are, because there are going to be many. There really are. They just don't like to admit it, but they exist. Homosexuals exist in this world. We exist. So don't try and deny us or reject us or treat us like second-class citizens, because we're not. We're just like you. We're the same. We just love someone of the same sex. Why should that be an issue? It shouldn't be an issue in this day and age. The teachings of the church are based on a book 2,000 years old. A lot has changed in that time. And if you actually read the Bible, I haven't read the Bible from cover to cover, but I've read various passages. But if you read it, the majority of the stuff in it, you would not even publish today. Yet people adhere to its every single teaching. The world has changed, seriously changed. Whether or not there is a God, whether or not there is Jesus, that's up for debate. But that's not for me to determine. I have my own views. As I said, as an agnostic, I believe in something. But I do have faith. Now, I remember as a child going to what was called Wednesday nightclub. And it was a bit of a happy, clappy church. So we would sing hymns, and there was a dear lady called Mrs. Hatt. I've actually spoken about this before, but it's quite relevant. And I used to go along with my friend Jason, and we used to go. I don't know why we went really initially. I have no idea. And were we both religious? No, we weren't. It was kind of like a social outlet. And I know my mother and father were a bit sort of, oh my God, why are you going to church? But I think it was either Baptist or Methodist, and this just shows my ignorance on all things religion, because I can't remember. But it was this tiny little church in the hometown of Fairham where I came from, and we used to go there, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the hymns. I still remember some of them. I'm not going to sing them now, but I still remember them. And I suppose that was the period that got me interested in religion, God, Jesus. That was my initial foray into it, if you like. My first partner was an organist in the church. Wayne, lovely guy, still in contact, still love him deeply. He's an absolute gem, and he's always been in the church. The Salvation Army were big to him as well, and my partner, there was someone else in between, and then the next relationship I had, he's now a priest, and that is fantastic news because I always knew that's what he wanted to do, and I'm so happy that he's been able to do that. That shows just how far the Church of England has progressed. You can't actually say the same for the Catholic Church at all. It exists, homosexuality exists, but it's hidden away so nobody sees. So my biggest fear is a return to the old church and so-called traditional family values, and a rejection of everything Pope Francis stood for. He has his faults. He had his faults, for sure. And there have been comments from friends online saying that he was still part of a religion, or I think they call it a sect, that rejected people like me. I understand that, but he still did more than any other pope in history to accept everyone under the umbrella of the Catholic Church. It's his funeral today, and I will be watching, as I normally watch these big occasions, because it's an important milestone. Whatever happens to the church will change. I have a feeling, if I was to make a prediction, I would predict that we will have a black conservative pope going forward. That will be a change in itself. The fact that a person of colour can become pope is truly, truly amazing, and it's showing just how much the world has changed. The politics of it, how conservative a pope might be, is the issue, the stumbling block. And I just hope we can have a good balance. I don't want to see a return to the old division. So religion has played a nominal part in my life, I would say. My father, he is. My father's still a Catholic, or you'd call him a lapsed Catholic. His sister, my aunt, also. I think she's less lapsed. I don't know quite how it works, but she, I think they're bigger in the church as such. And I have a lot of family from Liverpool, Catholics. My grandmother was Irish, Catholic. So that religious vein runs throughout my genealogy, really. I thought at one stage I'd like to become a priest. I believe strongly in what religion teaches. I believe in the goodness that they teach. But, my sexuality does exist. I exist, and it just interferes with my my feelings on the church, because I think we should help those less fortunate. I volunteered to help people in the past. I believe in so much that if Jesus was real, believed in, I believe in these things. I believe in helping those less fortunate. I believe in helping minority groups. I believe in all these things. But I don't necessarily believe that those in the church, those who go to church and say they're a Christian or a Catholic or an Anglican, I don't believe they truly are, because of the things they say, because of the rejection they give to people like myself. You never know. In a couple of weeks, we may have a very, very progressive Pope, which would be wonderful. I doubt it. I doubt it very much. But, until we know, just keep believing, I think. So, R.I.P. Pope Francis. You were certainly one of the better popes in my lifetime. And I hope you are up there with the angels, because that's something I'd love to believe is true. Who knows? Have a good week. Take care of yourselves. And I'll talk to you next week.